Hi, I'm Ava, and I wasn't supposed to be at Thanksgiving this year. At least, not according to my family. Not because I forgot to RSVP, not because I showed up late, but because, somehow, I'd become the extra, the afterthought, the one who didn't fit anymore. And that hit me the moment I walked through the front door of the house I grew up in and saw it. 10 chairs, 11 guests, 1 chair missing, mine. "Hey, sweetie!" My mom called out from the kitchen like everything was fine. I set my overnight bag down near the coat rack. No one offered to help. No hugs. No, "How was the drive?" Just the smell of cinnamon, rosemary, and something burning slightly in the oven. The house looked the same, but something was off. The table was set. Candles, linen napkins, mismatched vintage plates she only pulled out once a year. There was laughter coming from the dining room, clinking glasses, familiar voices. My brother Nate, his wife Emily, their 2 toddlers. My sister Chloe, already 2 glasses of wine in from the sound of it. And somewhere in that house, my dad, probably adjusting the thermostat and pretending to be busy so he didn't have to acknowledge the tension brewing in the air. "Where should I put my things?" I asked. Mom looked up from basting the turkey. "Oh, I think there's space in the laundry room for your bag. But don't leave anything in the guest room. Chloe's staying in there with her fiancé." I paused. "And the second guest room?" "Oh, that's for Nate and the kids, of course." Right. Of course. I picked up my bag again and walked toward the back of the house, through the hallway that still had our school portraits hung up. My face stuck in 5th grade, before I cut my hair, before I knew how easily families fracture when no one says the truth out loud. Back then, I thought holidays meant something. Now, I wasn't sure if I even qualified as family anymore. When I came back out, they were already pouring the wine. Plates filled, napkins on laps, but no chair for me. I stood for a second, just long enough for Chloe to notice. "Oh, Mom, didn't you set up 11?" she asked, raising her glass mid-sip. My mom turned around, looking almost confused. "I thought we were 10. Everyone went quiet. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't dramatic. It was worse than that. It was normal for them. I laughed, just once. That sharp kind of laugh you let out when something breaks inside your chest but you're too tired to make a scene. "I guess I can eat in the kitchen," I said quietly. "Oh, honey, no," my mom said too quickly, as if realizing how it sounded. "We've got that little folding chair in the garage, you remember? The one with the duct tape on the back? It's perfectly fine. I'll grab it." "No," I replied, still smiling. "Let me. I know exactly where it is." And I did, because it had always been mine. I sat at the edge of the table, lower than everyone else, my knees too high, my back too bent. Next to me, Chloe whispered, "Why didn't you just tell them you were coming?" "I did," I said. "3 weeks ago." She blinked. "Oh." There was stuffing on the table, green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce from a can, my favorite still shaped like the ridges of aluminum. "Pass that down to Ava," my dad said. It was the only thing he said to me all night. By the time dessert came out, my plate was empty. Not just of food, but of energy. I wasn't angry. I was suspended, like I was watching a family I used to know from behind a soundproof window. "Can you believe Chloe's wedding is only 6 months away?" my mom gushed, slicing into the pecan pie. Everyone cheered, toasted, talked about colors and dresses and destination venues. No one asked what I'd been up to. Not one question. I cleared my plate, rinsed it quietly in the sink, and stared out the kitchen window. The yard hadn't changed. The fence was still leaning to one side. The garden my mom used to pretend to care about was mostly weeds now. But the bird bath was still there, the one my grandpa built before he passed. I used to sit by it when I needed air. Maybe I'd do that tomorrow. Maybe I'd leave before breakfast. Maybe I wouldn't come back next year. "You okay?" Nate asked behind me. His voice was low, cautious. I nodded. "You sure?" "No," I said, "but I'll survive." He stood there for a beat, like he wanted to say more, but he didn't. He just nodded, patted my shoulder once, and walked away. Back in the hallway, I grabbed my phone and scrolled through old photos I didn't even remember taking. Me in college, me at the lake, me with my old dog before he died, me, smiling, real, present, not just inserted. And that's when I realized This wasn't about the chair. It never was. It was about being allowed to take up space in a place that always claimed to love you, but never left room for who you really are. I put my phone down. I opened my bag, and I pulled out the USB I'd kept for almost a decade. It wasn't time yet, but it would be soon. Ever been in a room full of family and felt like a stranger? There's a photo on my mom's mantle that's been there since Chloe's graduation. We're all in it. Me, Chloe, Nate, both our parents. But if you look close, really close, you'll notice I'm cropped at the edge, like I'd wandered into the frame by accident. No one talks about it. I used to wonder if it was intentional. Now I know it doesn't matter. The effect is the same. That night I couldn't sleep. The mattress in the laundry room had a dip in the middle, the kind that pulls you down like a slow decision. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of the dishwasher, the muffled sound of my mother laughing on the phone. "I'm just glad everyone's here," she said. "It feels complete." Complete. I rolled onto my side, pressing my face into the pillow to drown out the words. When I was 16, I spent 3 months saving up for a winter coat. Not a fancy one. Just warm enough to get me through those frigid December mornings when the school bus came late and the heater barely worked. I remember showing it to my mom. $60? For that? She frowned, running her fingers along the lining. "Why didn't you just ask me?" "I didn't want to bother you," I said. "You were saving for Chloe's pageant trip." She didn't respond, just hung it back on the hook like it wasn't worth the space it took up. The next morning, Chloe walked out of her room wearing a brand new faux fur coat. White, designer, still had the tag on. She needed it for the photos, Mom said when I asked. Of course she did. People say favoritism is subtle, but in my family, it wore a name tag. "I don't play favorites," my mom always claimed. "I love you all equally." Then she'd go on to describe Chloe as our miracle baby, Nate as the strong one, and me as, well, nothing in particular. Once, she called me the helper, as in, Ava always pitches in, she's so practical. Translation, invisible. The morning after Thanksgiving, I made coffee and sat by the window before anyone else woke up. It was cold outside, dew clinging to the glass like breath held too long. Nate joined me, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "You okay?" I nodded. "Always." "You didn't eat much yesterday." "Wasn't hungry?" He hesitated. "Listen, I know it gets weird here sometimes. Mom she gets wrapped up in the event of it all. Doesn't mean she doesn't care." I turned to him. "You got a personalized seat card. So did Emily. Even the kids had little name tags with turkeys on them. You know what mine said?" "What?" "Nothing. Because there wasn't one." He didn't say anything. Later that day, while helping clean up the kitchen, I opened the silverware drawer and found something that stopped me cold. A handwritten list. Thanksgiving seating. Final. Dad. Mom Chloe Matt, her fiancé. Nate Emily, 7-8. The kids Uncle Ray Aunt Lynn. I stared at it. There wasn't even a crossed out line where my name used to be. It had never been there. "You weren't supposed to see that," Mom said from behind me. I didn't flinch. "Clearly." She stepped closer, drying her hands on a towel. "I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. It's just, we had to prioritize. You live on your own. You're independent. It's not like you really need the attention." I turned around. "So this was about space or hierarchy?" She sighed, exasperated. "Ava, don't twist this. You're always so sensitive." There it was, the phrase that ends all uncomfortable truths. I'm not hurt. I'm just sensitive. I'm not excluded. I'm dramatic. I nodded once. "Thanks for clearing that up." The rest of the day blurred. Board games, pie reheated in the microwave, Chloe showing off her engagement ring like it had a second story to tell. No one asked about me. No one ever really does. That night, I sat on the back steps with my laptop open on my knees. I had opened this folder years ago, back when I still thought collecting proof would make a difference. That if I ever needed to explain why I felt the way I did, I could point to it and say, "See? It's not just in my head." There were photos, messages, calendar events I'd been accidentally left off, screenshots of group chats where my name didn't come up once, recordings of birthdays where I held the camera instead of being in the shot. But the one file I hovered over now was titled, Belonging.docs. It wasn't a document. It was a timeline. Each line, a moment I was erased in real time. You ever notice how some people won't hurt you loudly? They'll just leave you out quietly, and then tell you you're overreacting when you ask why. Ever kept a list of the moments you realized someone never really saw you? I used to think silence was peace, that if I didn't push back, didn't raise my voice, didn't make things harder, then maybe I'd earn my place. Turns out, silence is just permission dressed in manners. It was the Easter brunch when everything shifted. Back then, Chloe had just gotten her first job at a boutique downtown. She was glowing. New money, new boyfriend, new haircut. She was sitting at the center of the table like she always did, retelling the story of how a customer tipped her $20 just for being charming. My mom laughed like it was the most adorable thing in the world. I was halfway through mentioning that I'd just submitted my final thesis, something I'd poured my soul into for 6 months, when Mom cut in. "Oh, Ava, hold that thought. Chloe, did you tell them about the necklace?" "The necklace? God, not that one." Chloe lit up. "Oh, yes, so get this. Remember Grandma's old necklace? The one she left in that weird velvet pouch? I found it in Mom's drawer and it looked so good with my new blazer. Everyone at work loved it." I froze. That necklace wasn't just some antique. It was the only thing Grandma had given to me, specifically. I remembered her holding my hand after her final Thanksgiving with us, her thumb rubbing the back of mine like she knew time was short. She said it quietly, like she was telling a secret. "This is for you, Ava. Not because it's worth anything, but because it was mine, and you don't get enough things that are just yours." I hadn't seen it since the week after her funeral. Now it was around Chloe's neck, shimmering under the light, clasped like it belonged there. After dessert, when everyone scattered to the living room or started checking their phones, I pulled Mom aside in the hallway. "Why did Chloe have the necklace?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean. It was in your drawer. Grandma gave it to me." She frowned, then smiled in that slow, rehearsed way she always did when trying to diffuse conflict without acknowledging it. "It's just a necklace, Ava. You've never really been into jewelry anyway. Chloe actually wears things like that. It would have just sat in a box with you." I wasn't aware inheritance was based on wardrobe. She narrowed her eyes, tone hardening ever so slightly. "Don't be petty." There it was again. I wasn't expressing concern. I was being petty. I wasn't being erased. I was being dramatic. I wasn't standing up for myself. I was disrupting the mood. And I felt it. This knot in my chest, so familiar by then I thought it was just part of who I was. But it wasn't. It was grief. The kind you feel when someone takes something from you and then tells you shouldn't miss it. The next day, I started my silence. I stopped sharing updates. Stopped texting first. Stopped expecting space at the table, literal or otherwise. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally realized they didn't. Back in the present, I sat in the car outside the house, fingers frozen on the steering wheel. It was my last night in town before driving back to my apartment, my tiny, quiet, rented apartment where everything inside belonged to me and no one told me I was too sensitive for liking things a certain way. Mom had offered me a hug before bed. I declined. The next morning, I left before sunrise. No note, no goodbye, no dramatics. I just slid the USB drive back into my coat pocket, zipped it closed, and drove away with the same calmness I once mistook for peace. But as I merged onto the freeway, I thought of something I hadn't in years. The letter. One summer, after high school, before life got complicated, I wrote my mom a letter. It was honest, gentle, raw. I told her I felt like the space I took up didn't feel earned, that I was always trying to prove something, be useful, stay helpful, never rock the boat. I told her it was exhausting. She never replied. When I asked about it a week later, she said, "Oh, I think I threw it out. I didn't realize it was serious." You ever give someone your heart in writing only to have them toss it like a receipt? It stays with you, even when you stop writing, especially when you stop writing. So no, I didn't hug her this time. I didn't smile politely. I didn't make peace to make her feel comfortable. Because I'd done that already. And it never kept me from being forgotten. Ever had someone erase something that mattered to you and then call it not a big deal? The drive back was silent. No music, no podcasts. Just the hum of my engine and the wind pressing against the windows like it wanted to ask if I was okay. I didn't feel angry. Not exactly. Anger would have been easier. What I felt was sober. Like waking up from anesthesia and realizing the damage wasn't just from the surgery, but from what you'd let grow too long before cutting it out. I got home a little after noon. My apartment was cold, as if it had sensed my absence and mirrored it. I dropped my bag by the door and stood in the middle of the room without taking my coat off. There's a strange kind of silence that hits after leaving a loud house full of people who don't see you. The kind that feels louder than all the noise you just escaped. I made tea without thinking, muscle memory guiding my hands. As it steeped, I pulled the USB drive from my coat pocket and placed it on the table like it was something dangerous. Maybe it was. Not a bomb. Not exactly. But a fuse. I'd never intended to use it. That's the thing about people like me. People who grew up thinking love had to be earned in quiet ways. We collect evidence, but we rarely deliver it. Because we're always hoping we won't have to. But hope has an expiration date. That night, I went through every file again. Photos from birthdays where I wasn't invited, but saw the aftermath on Facebook. Screenshots of group chats where my only appearance was when someone accidentally said all instead of family. One video in particular stayed with me. It was from 2 Christmases ago. Chloe was opening a gift from my parents, a new smartwatch. She squealed, wrapped Mom in a hug, and said, "You remembered." The camera panned briefly, just long enough to catch me in the corner, holding a generic gift bag that had no tag. Inside, a cookbook, the same one I gave Mom the year before, re-gifted to me. I paused the video and stared at my own face in the frame. I wasn't sad. I wasn't surprised. I just looked tired. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called Aunt Sharon. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Well now, that's a surprise." "Hi," I said. "Sorry if this is a bad time." "It's never a bad time to hear from my favorite niece," she said quickly, then softened. "What's going on, sweetheart?" I hesitated, then said, "Do you remember the necklace Grandma gave me?" Sharon didn't even pause. "Of course. She told me about it before she passed, said it was for you specifically, said she wanted you to have at least one thing that couldn't be taken." I swallowed. "She didn't mean literally, did she?" I half-joked, but my voice cracked halfway through. There was silence. "Did Chloe take it?" Sharon asked, voice low now. "Not exactly. She wore it. Claimed she found it. Mom said it was just jewelry, that I wasn't really into that kind of thing." "Oh, honey," she sighed. "That necklace wasn't about jewelry. It was about being seen." We talked for 2 hours. About family. About patterns that repeat when no one names them. About how quiet loyalty is often confused for compliance. "I remember when you were little," Sharon said. "You used to play secretary while the other kids played princess. Always organizing, always helping. You thought if you kept everything running, someone would thank you." I smiled weakly. "Still waiting." She laughed. "Maybe it's time you stop waiting and start choosing." That night, I started writing the email. Not a rant, not a plea, not a guilt trip, a record. A list of the things they may have forgotten, but I hadn't. I didn't hit send. Not yet. That wasn't the plan. The plan was clarity, not closure. The plan was to stop pretending things would change just because I kept staying silent. I added a folder, labeled it Final Draft. Inside it, I put the letter I wrote years ago, the one Mom threw away, and then I wrote a new one. "Dear Mom, don't worry, this isn't dramatic. I'm not here to accuse or demand or even explain. That part's over. I just wanted you to know I remember. I remember the time you asked me to sleep on the couch so Chloe could have my bed. The time you called Nate to tell him Dad was in the hospital but didn't call me. The time you forgot my graduation dinner. And the time you told Aunt Lynn I was just going through a phase when I didn't come home for Christmas. None of those broke me. But they accumulated. And now they're heavy. So I'm setting them down. I'm not asking you to pick them up. I'm just letting you know they existed. Because I did too. Love, Ava." The next day, I printed it, folded it, sealed it. and slipped it into an envelope along with a single photo, one that hadn't been cropped. Me, sitting on Grandma's porch, holding the necklace, smiling, real, unfiltered, unmistakably there. You ever realize someone's been editing you out of their narrative for so long, they actually forgot you were part of the story? Sometimes the best thing you can do is publish your own. Have you ever kept something, an object, a file, a moment, just to prove to yourself it really happened? The envelope sat on my kitchen table for 3 days before I mailed it. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to be. I needed to know, without anger, without resentment, that I was doing this for me, not for revenge, that I wasn't trying to hurt them. I just wasn't willing to keep letting them edit the version of me they found most convenient. When I dropped it into the mailbox, the air felt oddly still, like the moment before a storm, when the sky holds its breath. I didn't include a return address. I knew they'd know it was from me. The envelope contained no threats, no demands, just my letter, that single photograph, and the USB drive, labeled only with a small sticker that read, "In case you forgot." I mailed it on a Thursday. On Saturday, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. Then came the text from Chloe. "Mom's freaking out. What did you send her?" I didn't respond. An hour later, Nate called. This time I answered. His voice was unusually soft. Hey, listen, I don't know what's going on exactly, but Mom's been shaken. She hasn't come out of her room since this morning. Did she open it? He hesitated. Yeah, I guess she watched some of the videos, read the letter, and now she's saying she didn't realize how much she missed. Did she say that? She said she feels misunderstood, which for her is probably the closest you'll get to regret. I almost laughed. Of course. There was a long pause. Then he said quietly, "Was all of it true?" I leaned back into my couch, staring at the ceiling. It wasn't even all of it. That night I got an email from Mom. The subject line was blank. The body just said, "I didn't know you felt this way. I'm sorry if you ever thought you weren't wanted." No salutation, no sign-off, just that. I reread it 3 times. The word "if" sat like a splinter. I'm sorry if. Not, I'm sorry I made you feel. Not, I'm sorry for what I did. Just, if. Conditional empathy. I closed the email and went to bed. The following week, Chloe posted a photo on Instagram. The family sitting around a fire pit, mugs in hand, wrapped in plaid blankets. The caption said, "Cozy nights with my favorite people." I wasn't tagged. Of course I wasn't tagged. But I noticed something strange. Mom wasn't in the photo either. And neither was Dad. Just Chloe, Nate, Emily, and the kids. On Tuesday, I got another message, this time from Emily. "Hey, I watched the folder on the drive. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was that bad. You always seemed okay." I stared at the message for a while. I typed, "Okay is what I learned to be so no one had to notice," then deleted it. Instead, I wrote, "Thanks for watching it." That was enough. 2 days later, I heard from Aunt Sharon again. "Your mom called me," she said. "Oh yeah?" "She asked if I put you up to it." I laughed. Classic. "She said she doesn't know how to fix this." I was quiet. "She also said she thought she was doing the best she could." I nodded, even though Sharon couldn't see it. "I believe she believes that." Sharon let out a slow breath. "So what now?" I took a sip of coffee. "Now I wait." "For what?" "For them to decide whether I'm worth reaching for, without me having to shrink first. The thing about showing someone their reflection is that they'll either look away or shatter the mirror. But sometimes, rarely, they'll finally see it. And if they do, you'll know, because they'll stop calling your truth an attack. On Friday, a card arrived in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was my dad's. Inside, a check, unsigned, and a note written in his usual, barely legible scrawl. "I don't know what this is for, but I know you deserve something, more than you've been given. I'm sorry I didn't know sooner. Dad." No flourish, no excuses, just those 2 sentences. It wasn't redemption, but it was real, and that was a start. You ever wait so long to be seen that when it finally happens, you're not sure what to do with it? That's what it felt like the door had opened, but I wasn't rushing to walk through it anymore. The first ripple didn't come from my mother. It came from Aunt Lynn. 3 days after I sent the envelope, she called me. Not texted, called, which was already strange. We'd never been close. She was always more aligned with my mom. Same polished tone, same side glances at family dinners, same tendency to speak in half compliments that made you feel like you should apologize for existing. But this time her voice was different. Hesitant, but raw. "I watched everything," she said without preamble. I didn't respond at first. I didn't know she had it. "I asked your mom to share it. She didn't want to. Said it was private. I told her it stopped being private the moment she let it stay silent." Still, I stayed quiet. Aunt Lynn let out a breath. "I owe you an apology." Now I spoke. For what? For enabling, for watching it happen all these years and deciding it wasn't my place to interfere. There was a pause. "I thought being neutral was the same as being kind," she added. "But it's not. It's just choosing the side that keeps you comfortable." I leaned back, feeling something I hadn't expected. Grief for how many people had seen it, but chosen not to see me. Later that week, Sharon forwarded me an email thread from the family group chat I hadn't been on in over a year. It was supposed to be about Christmas plans. But halfway through, Chloe snapped. "Can we stop tiptoeing around this? Ava dropped a nuke and now everyone's acting like she made it up. Either we invite her to Christmas like she's part of the family, or we stop pretending this is a family at all." That wasn't like her. Sharon texted me separately. "She's shaken. Not sure it's guilt or pride bruised, but it's something." "You okay?" she added. I replied, "I'm still here. That's more than I could say a few months ago." The biggest surprise came next. Dad called. Not a text, not a forwarded article pretending to be concerned. An actual call. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was quiet, slow, not like him. "Hey, it's me. I know that doesn't mean much right now. I got your letter. I read it 3 times. I always thought I was doing the right thing by not getting in the middle of things between you and your mom. Thought it was her space, her rules, her lane. And I didn't want to make it worse." "But silence made it worse, didn't it?" He paused. I could hear him breathing through the receiver like he was bracing himself. "I don't want to be silent anymore. I don't expect you to call back. I just wanted you to know. I heard you. Fully. Finally." I didn't cry, but I sat on my couch for a long time after that, holding my phone like it was something fragile. Like maybe the weight of finally being heard was heavier than the silence ever was. A few days later, Chloe emailed me. A proper email, not a one-line burst of emotion or a DM typed in passive aggression. Subject: "You were right. Body. I watched the videos, all of them. I saw myself in them, and I didn't like who I was. I don't know how to fix it, Ava, but I want to, if you'll let me." You ever have someone finally validate your experience and realize it's too late to go back, but maybe not too late to go forward? On the Friday before Christmas, Sharon invited me to brunch. Just the 2 of us. We met at a small cafe outside the city. No holiday decor, no performative family ambiance, just chipped mugs, a fireplace that actually smelled like wood, and a waitress who called us sugar without irony. After we ordered, Sharon pulled out her phone. "I saved one of your clips," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "Clips?" "The one where you're narrating the birthday party, where you gave Chloe your RSVP but she accidentally forgot to add you to the final count." I winced. "That one's rough." "She laughed," Sharon said, stirring her coffee. "At the time, when she watched it back this week, she cried." I blinked. "Chloe cried?" She said, "I didn't realize I sounded like Mom." That hit harder than I expected. I stared at the foam in my mug. That's the thing, right? You spend so long trying not to become them, and one day you wake up and realize you already did. "She's trying to undo it," Sharon said gently. "That matters." I nodded slowly. "It does." Then I looked at her. "But I'm not going to pretend like it didn't happen. I'm done shrinking to make space for their comfort." Sharon smiled. "Good." Then she pulled out a small envelope and slid it across the table. "What is this?" She tapped it once. "It's your name. On the Christmas invitation list, handwritten, from me." I opened it. It read, "Ava, your seat is by the fire. The real chair. No folding metal legs this time. Just us. And cinnamon rolls." You in? You ever see your name written down and feel, for the first time in forever, like you belong there? I didn't go. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to anymore. They set the table, they saved me a seat. Sharon sent a photo, the fireplace glowing, the plate with my name card folded in gold ink. Chloe baked cinnamon rolls. Dad called twice. Even Mom sent a message. Whenever you're ready, we are too. But I didn't go. Because this year, I didn't need a chair to prove I belonged. I belonged the moment I stopped asking to. Instead, I made my own dinner. Not a feast, not a performance, just soup, warm bread, and a soft playlist in the background. I lit a candle, not for ceremony, but because I liked the smell. I set a place at the table, not for someone else, but for myself. No apologies, no tight smiles, no pretending I wasn't shrinking just to make space. Just me. Whole. Undiluted. I opened a book, read until the candle burned low. Let the quiet be a comfort, not a punishment. And I realized something no one ever taught me. Peace isn't always reunion. Sometimes it's release. The truth is, I never wanted revenge. I just wanted room. Room to breathe, room to be, room to no longer be the footnote in someone else's family narrative. And I have it now. Not because they gave it, but because I stopped waiting. Sometimes healing isn't walking back through the door. It's building your own and locking it from the inside. Looking back, I've learned that belonging isn't something you're granted. It's something you claim. I spent years shrinking myself to fit into spaces that were never built for me. But healing came the moment I stopped waiting for an invitation. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, please hear this. Your worth isn't defined by who includes you, but by how you honor yourself when they don't. What would you have done if you were in my place? Would you have gone back or walked away like I did? If this story touched you or even challenged you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if it didn't speak to you, tell me why. Let's talk about it. If this video found its way into your heart, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. You never know which one might be yours.